Hi, everyone, and welcome to Gallery Teachers Masterclass. My name is David, and today we'll be looking at incorporating AI skills into our writing lessons and courses. There's so many different, workshops and talks out there. I know I've been to various conferences these years, and AI has been a real thread at all of them. And I feel a lot has already been said. And so today I'm not going to try and go over and recover all that ground. So I'm not really going to be discussing what teachers can do with AI. I feel there's so many talks about creating texts, creating lesson plans, using this or that tool. So that's all been said and done. Also, I'm not really going to dig into specific tools. I think I'll probably just refer to them as AI tools whenever I talk about them. Personally, my two favorite is Gemini and ChatGPT, but realistically, these are just constantly developing and constantly changing. So for me, it's not so much the tools we use, but what we do with them and what skills we teach our students with. So I'm really not going to talk about either of these that much today. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but just because it's all been said before. You can find countless videos online about these. So what am I going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about how important AI skills are for our students. I'll look at the case for sort of bringing them into our writing skills lessons, explore some key AI skills that I think our students need, and look at some examples from lessons that I've created. And all of this is so that you can build AI skills into your own writing lessons or courses. So before we really kick off, there's a question I want to dig into. And this is one I just don't think we can get away from. I've had so many conversations about this, and I think it's a really big, important question. So should the use of AI be considered cheating? And think about it yourselves, take a moment, pop it in the chat. What do you think? What are your first impressions? While you think about that, I just want to give you a little bit about my context, because I think context is important when we decide what's cheating and what isn't cheating, So I work for a chain of English language schools called EC English. We have schools around the world, and we teach adults 16 years and above. And many of those are going off to study at university. Many are going off to different workplaces. So our whole sort of vision is preparing these people for the future, for to succeed in a global environment. Now, in that way, it's not high stakes kind of testing we're doing with them. It's not, some of them will go on to do an IELTS exam, and that's absolutely fine, but we're preparing them for the future. That's our job. Prepare them for the real world, for the future. So if we don't talk about AI and we don't bring it in, or we just don't incorporate technology at all, then we're really not preparing them for the future. So in this context, I would say the use of AI probably shouldn't be considered cheating. And here's my argument. And again, very happy for this to become a discussion. If anyone disagrees, I'm really happy to listen to both sides, because this is by no means a black and white issue. It's a really interesting issue that I think we just need more and more discussion on. But my point of view is that if I receive a text and I can tell by looking at it, I can see the voice of AI in it, and it doesn't really matter if the student has used AI to get there. It's a bad text because I can't see the student in it. This is not an effective text. However, if I receive a text and I can see the student's voice and it's organized as I expect, and I can't see the sort of thread of AI within it, then I kind of don't care if a student has used AI tools to get there. I think they've used the tools around them to create something that is undeniably theirs. And we can then go, okay, but that doesn't prepare them for like an IELTS assessment, or It might not prepare them if they need to write an essay in the middle of an exam, which is true. But we then have another question, is whether or not assessment kind of is fit for purpose and needs to catch up. For me, our assessment, at least in my context, should be preparing them for the future. And in the future, I would expect anyone going into the workplace is going to be using AI tools to create text. If they're not, they're missing a trick, because AI is fantastic and it's just getting better and better and better. So for me, I think we should embrace it. It's here to stay. But more than embrace AI, prepare people to use it, because it ain't perfect. It really isn't. And we do need to work with it in order to create something that is ours. And I think that's why we're here with this whole question of cheating. We're getting texts, we're receiving texts that are not the work of our students. And our leap is that that's cheating. And I suppose my premise is that it doesn't really matter if it's cheating, it's a bad text, and we should mark it down accordingly. I was recently speaking to someone and they said, with the use of AI, cover letters are now redundant because AI can create a cover letter in seconds. But that's a bad cover letter. Sure, there's good things about it, but it's not my cover letter. More and more in the world, a cover letter is an opportunity for us to communicate our personality, our culture fit to a prospective employer. So if they're looking at it and it's just generic AI generated stuff that doesn't have me in it, that is a bad cover letter, and I do not expect to get through to the next stage. So I don't think any sort of text like those will be cancelled or will be redundant. And I don't think we can rely on AI to just create them for us. But we can create them with AI. And that's kind of the crux of what we're talking about today. So student context. So as I explained, many of our students are going off to university, and many of my students are going off to the workplace. And more and more research is coming out that one of the key skills for employment is digital literacy, able to use AI and everything. And I know in many universities, the use of AI tools is banned when it comes to writing, or discouraged. And I'm hoping more and more universities are taking a bit more of an overt approach, where they're encouraging their students to just communicate to what extent they have used AI. Have they used it for prompt writing? Have they, how far have they come from the response? I think this is a really positive step forward, this transparency, because I don't really see how we can ban it. Like, where's the line? Where do you draw that line? What tool do we say is okay to use? AI is all around us. Just because suddenly ChatGPT and Gemini have made this incredible tool accessible to us, doesn't mean AI wasn't knocking around in the background for years. Are we going to say students can't use Grammarly? They're using Grammarly to check your the coherence of your text. Is that cheating? I mean, when I did my dissertation, I got my mum to check it for me. She was very good at proofreading. Was that cheating? She gave me a lot of notes and I edited my text accordingly. I didn't think I was cheating. I don't want to say using the tool around me, but my mum helped. So I suppose, where do we draw the line on these things? I don't think you really can ban them. I think we need to incorporate and really think about whether our assessments are fit for purpose for our students. So these are kind of the two main student contexts, and I really feel like either of these two would need more AI skills, more AI literacy in their future. Recently, I was chatting to a group of people and we were talking about this, and we started talking about what skills we need to write a text. And again, guys, start putting them in the chat window. What are the key skills you think we need to write a text. And so we decided as a group, we settled into a number of different skills. And the skills that sort of came up, and again, you might have a different word for this skill, or you might see it as broken up into a few different ones, absolutely fine. The ones that came up was organization, both sort of organization of a text as a whole, but also paragraphing organization. Appropriacy here, people sort of were talking about appropriacy of grammar, vocabulary, and things like that. So real appropriacy of language. Planning a text, editing a text, formality within it, register within a text as well. And task achievement here, we discussed a lot about the audience, communicate to the audience. Are they informed and all of this? So we kind of settled on these 6. I'm happy to hear other ones when we're discussing this. But what we really sort of realized as we discussed this, we thought, can AI do these? Which of these can AI actually do? And, I kind of hate to say it, AI can organize a text. It can use appropriate language. It can plan a text. It can plan it in seconds. You can say, change this, change that, and then boom, 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 boom. It can give you the opposite version of it. It can edit a text in seconds. It can use varying degrees of formality. And if you feed it a task, it can achieve it. So all of these are doable. They're all absolutely achievable using AI. So maybe we're done. Maybe that's it. Maybe we can all go home, But it doesn't necessarily do them well. Not all of them, and not always, not consistently. So we kind of need to decide, do we use it knowing that it's not going to be perfect? Do we ignore it because it won't be perfect? Where do we kind of go with this? And for me, anytime I create a text, anytime I write a lesson, anytime I write a blog or an article or anything, before I write it, I do a little bit of research. I'm checking similar kinds of texts online. I'll have a look in the magazine at the way, the voice, the tone of articles. I'm going to do quite a lot of sort of Googling and checking out similar things. I might ask some people for feedback. All of these are things we do. The beauty of AI is that it will do it in seconds, and we can get a lot more in those seconds than we can necessarily get from, extended Google searches. So AI can do these things. We should kind of be using it to do it, but it's not perfect. Let's have a look. Here's a text. So I asked an AI tool, I gave it a little email between Minji and Pat, and I said, reply to this email. Now, Pat was very friendly in the email, right? They're clearly friends, her and Minji. And she asked a few questions about coming to New York and asked Minji's advice. So have a little look around here. And is there anything that jumps out at you at this AI created text? Again, feel free to sort of write your ideas in the chat, and we can dig into them later. For me, this is a well-organized email. You can't deny it. Look, it's got all the features. Paragraphs are well organized. Yeah, you could say there's one idea per paragraph. There's a lot of good things in here. But if I wrote to a friend of mine and they wrote this back to me, I might question my relationship with them. I might think we were not as close as I thought we once were. Because this is kind of devoid of human, really, for lack of a better word. It is quintessentially AI. It does not feel like these people are friends. It's overly formal, given the email that was sent them. It's really lacking in that sort of personal touch. You can, even just before making any reservations, I recommend checking recent reviews and ratings. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, this sounds like terms and conditions in an Airbnb website, right? It's not a friendly email. But that doesn't mean there's nothing we can take from it. That doesn't mean it's not a step towards a good email. And if if English is your second language, this can be a big step towards your email, your final email. And I think herein lies the problem. A lot of our students, a lot of people in the world have realized that with AI, they can leapfrog several stages in the writing process. The issue is when they think they can leapfrog to the end, and they can't. They can leapfrog to a new middle, and then new skills that haven't necessarily existed in this way before need to be employed to take you from this middle to the end. It doesn't mean that this leapfrog isn't worthwhile. It doesn't mean they shouldn't make it. It just means there's more work to be done. So what does that work like? What do these skills look like? I've been thinking a lot about this. And for me, there are three main skills we need to be thinking about, and another area, a further area, we need to be discussing with our students. The three skills are writing effective prompts. The fact is, if you put in rubbish, you get out rubbish. Number of people I've spoken to who have stopped using AI tools because they tried it once or twice and they put in a prompt and they got back something ridiculous and they went, well, this doesn't help me at all. And I completely understand that because there is a skill in writing effective prompts. There are books written about it. There's videos online. There's so much stuff. And we need to be talking to our students about how best to do this, because if they are putting in rubbish, they will get out rubbish and we will get handed in rubbish. And we don't want that. We want good texts. So effective prompt writing is key. Analyzing the responses. Now, this is something that we constantly do with our students in kind of a controlled environment. You know, we give them a text, we give them some guiding questions, and we say, you know, where identify the headings or link the paragraph to its meaning, or we encourage them to analyze texts. Here, I would say we need to expand that because you just get so much from AI. So we need to expand that skill so it's a little bit less controlled, but maybe a little bit more worthwhile. And the final one, and this, I think, this is the most important. This is what changes a text from being AI created to being undeniably your text. And that is inserting your voice. And more in our industry, there are conversations, we're seeing them in course books about, you know, I was looking at one the other day. It was a lovely communicative task about who are you in English? You know, what's your personality? What's your personality in your language? How do you come across in English? Is it the same? Do you want to come across differently? Does the language or the skills allow you to come across in the same way? Really, really, really interesting. And I think we're seeing much more of these kinds of activities, which is great. This is key. If you want to create a text using AI tools, it's all about inserting your voice, inserting your argument, making sure that you are present. Recently, my wife used some AI tools to create a cover letter. I read it. I was like, this is absolutely fantastic, but this is you, this is you, this is you. This paragraph is AI, this is you. And it just jarred with the whole. So it's important that you have your voice throughout, because otherwise the text starts to jar for the reader. And what is that? That is a bad piece of writing. That is not cohesive. So we have to make sure that students are aware of their voice and aware how to insert it into their writing. Now, we'll come to the sort of the fourth area, the topic, in a little bit. But let's dig into each of these a little bit further and look at how they might be handled in class. So the first is writing an effective prompt. Now, there's loads of different activities and things you can get online. I quite like this Risen framework. whatever the framework you use, it's important that students, you teach it to them and they follow it. And it's all about leaving the AI no room to maneuver within your prompt. One of my favorite things to do, and I do this myself, is if I'm trying to create an article or a report or a summary or anything like that, I will say, I want you to interview me. I want you to ask me these questions and any other questions you need to get the information you need to write whatever it is, this report, this article. And then the AI will just start interviewing me. And what's really interesting is it asks me follow-up questions. So when I think I've been clear, it will ask me further questions and I'll have to elaborate and make sure I know exactly what I'm trying to achieve with this text, or I'm really considering. A lot of the questions it will ask is, who is it for? Who is the audience? And what are their needs? What are their wants? And so it really helps me to hone what I want. So by the end of the process, I not only have an AI generated response to begin me on my journey, I have really, really, really considered what I want out of this text. The AI tool has just helped me plan my text and be clear about what I need from it. So I think prompt writing is really, really, really necessary. The other thing to remember is that it doesn't have to be a single prompt. You won't necessarily get what you want the first time. And the beauty of AI is you can just redraft in seconds, or hone it. And that's something I sort of really would encourage you to talk a lot about with your students. What did you get? Was it what you wanted? Don't abandon it. Ask a follow-up question or give a follow-up prompt, and then reflect. What have you learned? What do you need? What information do you need to give the AI tool next time in order to get the information you want, the response you want? So I really think writing effective prompts is worth spending quite a bit of time. It's worth trying out different things with your chosen AI tool. The next one is analyzing responses. And I absolutely love this. This is great because what are we analyzing for? Well, first of all, I'll advertise a lot for organization. So how is this text organized? What are, the paragraphs, the headings, the subheadings, things like that? Does it have a title? Is the title rhetorical? What's really, really happening here? So I really like using the responses from the AI to give us this kind of information. Now, we do this. We do this all the time. If you think of any writing lesson that you've looked at, there's a model. There's a model, be it good or bad model, usually a good one, but sometimes a bad model of this text, and students answer questions about it. What's different here is that you now have infinite models. In a class of, let's say, for example, 15 students, all potentially using the same prompt, you might get 15 slightly different responses. So now, when you're analyzing for chunks of language, for common grammatical terms, for appropriate language within a text, for organization, whatever, you have 15 different responses, or infinite, because they can just look again. So you can start to get students, you can ask them to go, what language is similar across all of the people in your group? What words and phrases are coming up again and again? What organizational features are similar within all of them? And from that, they're learning about genre and appropriacy and everything. They're taking it from a number of different texts, but all those texts are trying to complete the same purpose. So they're seeing them from different ways. And by analyzing that thread and seeing those similarities, they begin to formulate their own features of the text, their own things they're going to put into their text. So this is really interesting. It involves, students on their phones. It's very engaging, very, very interactive, but useful. Because when we leave them to their own devices, they're not going to have necessarily a single curated model in a course book. When they're out in the real world, they'll have all these different texts, all these possibilities. So it's important from day one, we're encouraging them to analyze those. So I really think this is one of the most important stages. They're learning, it's guided discovery, but they're pulling it all from these texts. The final one, and the really sort of the key one, is establishing who people are. I mean, I love, there's a lovely activity where students put emails that they've written in English into an AI tool and ask, how do I come across in this email? I did it myself. I'd written an email to several colleagues and I put it into ChatGPT, I think, and I asked it, how do I come across in this email? It was very complimentary. It said I came across as a busy professional, very engaged in the industry of my own development, which is great because that's exactly what I want everyone to think of me. It's not true, but no, but it was really, really interesting. It was really good to see how it sees you. And it's a nice activity to do because you might think I'm coming across as professional, but maybe I'm coming across as standoffish, or I'm coming across as interested, but maybe I'm coming across as overeager. So it is interesting to get these ideas from the AI tools. So it's important to encourage students to be themselves. It's important to really help them to see how they want to come across and what their argument is. You know, if they're writing an essay, is that your argument, or is that ChatGPT's argument? What do you really want from this essay? What do you want the audience to take from it? So they can use AI to dig into that, but it's also important that there's a lot of reflection and a lot of sharing between peers and going, how do I come across? Can you see AI in here? Do you see my voice in here? Really, really important in things like emails and essays, maybe less so in reports. You want to see sort of less of the person in there. So it's an ongoing discussion. Now, the topic area, I think, is really, really interesting. And it's important that we are discussing. It's not necessarily a skill, is really discussing ethics. You know, what is it? Is it sort of, is there bias we need to be taking into account? We need to make sure that our learners are aware of this stuff, because if they're going into to use the AI blind, they will accept things instead of asking questions. So it's really critical thinking we're developing within our students. One of the big ones is questioning the data that comes from AI tools. I've had several quotes that had been presented as from one person, but when you ask, you go, actually, is this definitely from that person? Suddenly AI goes, oh, my bad, it's from this person. Or you ask, oh, where's this graph or this data or this stat from? And it will give you one place and you go, are you sure? And it will give you a complete different place. So it's important that students are aware of this, because they can't be taking this information and passing it off as true without questioning it. And that is an incredibly important skill just in the modern world. I spoke about how our job, I feel, is to prepare them for the future, for the real world, for this global community. And asking questions of a text and not accepting everything at face value is, I think we'll all agree, a really, really, really important skill. So with those skills and this sort of topic area, it's important, I feel, that we give students the opportunities to pull it all together, right? And so one of the final things I think is important in class time is to beginning to end a text. So what I mean by that is, if we've been looking at an email using AI tools, it's important to give them the opportunity to actually answer an email by using a prompt, analyzing what comes back, deciding what from it they're going to use. starting to craft their own, inserting in their own voice, making sure it's in there, maybe checking any information or checking any data or whatever, and then finally crafting their own text that is undeniably theirs. And if you do this in a lesson beginning to end, what you get is the opportunity for peer feedback. So, as simple as displaying it around the room gallery style and getting students to move around and consider, is this an effective text? Can I see AI within it? Does it jar at different points? Do I see the personality of the person shining through? Does it fit my expectation of this type of text, this genre? I think this is really nice awareness raising activity, because to jump back to the beginning, when we discussed cheating, the fact is we are receiving texts that we know to be AI. And these are texts that someone has handed in happily. Someone has gone, yeah, they're going to think that's me. And they've handed it in. And that has to be a lack of awareness of what is expected in the activity, what is expected in the task, but just a lack of awareness of what a text that is yours looks like. So the more we can raise awareness, the more we can discuss it, the more we can compare, the more we can get peer feedback, the better, I think. The final thing I wanted to chat about is what feedback I've had, because I found when I've piloted these kinds of lessons, I got feedback I wasn't necessarily expecting. So I'm going to show you what my students said about it. So this was a group of students in a school in Montreal, and they all wrote their feedback, handwritten, very kindly. So I'm going to read it out to you just in case, because it can be a little bit difficult to see. And if you could be thinking, what interesting similarity is there in their responses? So the class was very helpful to understand the proper ways to write an email in different situations. It was very necessary for sure. I'll use these new chunks in my emails from now on. It's so helpful and close to real life. I'd like to write this type of email, taking more time. I felt a bit hectic. I mean, we didn't have enough time to write. Okay, we could have had more time to write. I found it helpful because in the 2 weeks I felt my English improved because working for a week at topic strength skills. I find this week's lesson generally interesting, and it opened my eyes on how much using AI could be helpful. So if you have had any ideas and had a chance to put them into the chat, that's great. We can dig into them. For me, and when I've piloted this in other places as well, it's really interesting that the students rarely mention AI. The students mention writing. The students mention text. The students mention what they learn and what they're better able to do. And for the most part, do not mention AI. And that was really, really interesting for me, because that means it works. I'm not saying that we write AI courses. I'm not saying we write AI lessons. I'm saying that these are undeniable skills in the modern world that we need to incorporate into AI lessons, into writing lessons and writing courses. So I think it's a very subtle difference, but a really important one. We often in the industry tend to knee-jerk, go, we need to create this with the AI. It's much more subtle than that, I believe. We just need to be incorporating these conversations and these tools into our writing lessons. The teachers were a little bit different. And this one sort of comment, I think, summarizes a lot of the feedback I got from teachers. And this was, I piloted the AI email writing course with my class of 8 to 10. It was a fascinating experience. I was not very familiar with these type of tools. So when teachers gave feedback, they really focused on how it was developing their use of AI. So obviously they're au fait with writing skills and everything. So the AI was the +1 for them. And that was really interesting, because it was a nice sort of byproduct of these lessons, was also opening doors for the teachers to become more comfortable using AI. So the one thing I think is always hardest is taking that first step. It's really easy for me to kind of say, oh, you should just do this, because I'm really, I think, comfortable with AI and I really enjoy using it. But if you find it, maybe it feels like a challenge, it feels like a step too far, then I would urge you to take one step. And that step is to incorporate a single stage into your writing lessons with your students. And that is to get your students to ask an AI tool, whichever one you prefer, for feedback. And this is great because you get amazing feedback from AI tools. And not all of it is feedback you need to take on or you want to take on. I asked recently about a blog post that a student wrote, and it came back with really, really detailed feedback. It went on past this about some of the language they used, about how an area they could develop further. It was really, really, I would say, well thought out feedback, but it came in a second. So by adding this one stage into your writing lessons, you start to become a little bit more comfortable with AI. Your students start to become a little bit more comfortable with AI, and you get text that has already been through a draft and review process. So you're going to get infinitely better text from your students, unless, of course, they ignore all the feedback from the AI tool. But I doubt they will, because it is very comprehensive. So I would urge you to take that first step, but I'm really looking forward to digging into this a lot more with you guys.